And this is what I want to speak about today, brothers and sisters. Why is it sometimes that we turn to God and we ask Him certain things? I may have a disease and I turn to Allah Azza wa Jal and I ask Allah day in, day out to cure me, but in the end, I'm not cured. Why doesn't Allah Azza wa Jal deliver like He promised in the Quran? What's the problem? Now this is a discussion that has been raised for millenniums, not just centuries, even before Islam. That why is it that when we ask God and He's all powerful and He loves us but He doesn't give us? So this is a topic that has always been discussed. And there's so many answers that have been given by prophets, by imams, by scholars. Today I want to quickly touch upon a couple of quick answers so that we better understand why is it sometimes Allah doesn't answer our du'as. Or at least that's how it seems. Number one, this is probably the most common answer, and many times when we ask Allah and we do not find the answer, it could be because of this reason. Many times Allah does not give us what we beg Him for, what we ask Him for, not because He hates us, not because He's ignoring us, not because He's neglecting us, not because He doesn't care about us. He doesn't give us what we want for the exact opposite reason, because He loves us. How does that make sense? We ask and beg God for something, and He doesn't give us what we want because He loves us? Yes. The Holy Quran clearly says, عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم. And it may be that you hate something. You hate the conditions of your life. You hate the circumstances of your marriage. You hate the disease that you are in. But the Quran says, but Allah knows that this is better for you. And it may be that you love something. You beg Allah for something, but Allah Azza wa Jal knows the future. Allah knows all the circumstances. He sees the whole picture. He knows it's not good for you. So if He loves you, should He give you what you're asking for or no? If He loves you, He should not give you what you want if you're asking for the wrong thing. If He hates you, He can easily give you what you want and خلاص. اخلص منك. صح? But you won't ask Him anymore. You won't bug Him anymore day in and day out. So it could be because God loves you, He doesn't want to give you what you're asking for, because many times we are childish with Allah. That's the true reality. With Allah Azza wa Jal, we act in a childish way. We just insist on something without knowing the full circumstances, without knowing the future. Allah knows the future. That's why many times He denies us and He doesn't give us what we want. There's a hadith where I believe Imam al-Sadiq mentions a conversation between Allah and Musa. Allah tells Prophet Musa, do you know who or what I love most out of all the creations? Musa says what? He says, Abdi al-Mu'min, a believer, like you, every single one of you here. There is nothing that I love more than the believer. And then he tells Musa, let the believer know that when I give him something, it's for his own good. And when I deny him something, it's also for his own good. They're both for his own good, but you may not understand how. You may not see the full picture. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves me, He knows the future. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that anytime I'm not giving you what you want, know that what you're asking for is not right for you. How? This is where submission comes. We don't know. Our knowledge is so limited compared to Allah. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, Al-Islamu. What is Islam? The definition of Islam. When you say you're a Muslim, what does that mean? Does it just mean that you have a Muslim name? No. Does it just mean that you pray and fast? No. Does it just mean that you, for example, go to Hajj? No. Islam is much deeper than that. The Imam says, Al-Islamu huwa taslim. Islam is submission. Submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. You hold the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal and you tell Him, Ya Allah, You are my creator, my sustainer. I am weak. I am fallible. I am ignorant. You take care of me. And whatever happens to me, I will believe in you that this is for my own good. This is what Islam is. Islam is about submission to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Do you trust Him or not? It all comes down to this. If you keep on questioning and you keep on objecting, it means there's no trust. There's a trust issue between you and God. But if you trust Allah Azza wa Jal and you submit, Allah is telling you that I will take care of you. Now maybe I won't give you some of the things that you want, but it's for your own good. Maybe you'll go through difficult times, but even those difficult times are for your own good. Just trust me. You'll find out later. Trust me. But it's difficult for us to trust Allah Azza wa Jal because we always want to see concrete things in front of us. It's difficult just to trust Allah Azza wa Jal like that. This is what Iman is. The more trust, tawakkul we have in Allah, the higher your status is with Allah Azza wa Jal. So anyway, when we ask for some things, Allah is not giving us the answer, we have to realize that maybe I'm asking for the wrong thing. How? Allah knows. Even if you're asking for something very good, and Allah doesn't give it to you, know that Allah is denying you for a good reason. Let me give you an example. 3-4 years ago, I know 2 sisters that live in a Middle Eastern country. Both married, had kids. They really wanted to go to Mashhad to visit Imam al-Rida. How beautiful is it to go visit Imam al-Rida? Some of you here just came back last month from the ziyarah. Right? They begged Allah. They made a vow, nidhr, that if Allah allows us to go to Mashhad, financially it wasn't easy for them to go. They had issues with the visa. Every day a new problem would come. Until finally, all the obstacles started to clear away. And they were able to go to Mashhad. So they booked to go together as 2 families. Where? When? They were supposed to go in February of 2020. Now, they booked the tickets, they booked the hotels, all non-refundable. A day before the trip, one of the sisters, she has a young son, he falls ill, very ill. Taken to the hospital, doctor says, you cannot leave. But we have to go to Mashhad. We've booked this a year ago. It's non-refundable. This is our dream. This is this is that. He cannot leave. His situation does not allow him to leave the hospital. So the second sister leaves the next day very happy, thinking that she's the lucky one. She's the one that Allah loves, and her poor sister, she committed a sin. That's why Allah denied her last minute. And the other one who stayed was devastated. She was devastated to the extent that this incident shook her faith. She started to object to Allah. Ya Allah, I want to go visit your Imam. I don't want to go to some place to have fun. I want to go to visit the Imam, the 8th Imam. And I begged you, and I did this and that, and I saved so much money, and now my tickets are gone, and now I'm stuck with my child who's ill. This is how you treat me? She was very angry at Allah Azza wa Jal. And the other sister is sending pictures while this poor sister is in the hospital. She's at Imam al-Rida shrine, the maqam of the Imam. She's going, I'm sure, those individuals that went this year, she's at that restaurant eating those nice lamb chops. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, you'll experience it, inshallah. Blame it on my dad, I'm sure. Hajj Fuad, what do you think about those lamb chops?
We love them too.
Anyway, so she's sending pictures of the beautiful trip, and that other sister is just burning from the inside. I spoke to her after that. She said, I really considered becoming an atheist. What a religion is this? What a God is this? That He does this to me. I want to serve Him. I want to go to His Imam. And this is what He does to me. The 5th day of the trip of the other sister. This is February 2020. COVID is spreading all over the world. One of the first countries after China that COVID spread in was Iran. I was in Iran, by the way. I was in, not Mashhad, but in Qom. While most of the world was relatively safe, there's no COVID cases. Remember they used to count, oh, there's one case in this country and the country would lock down. Remember those days? So in Iran, all of a sudden, a case in this city, a case in that city. So all of a sudden, the borders started to close down. The airport started to close down. All the flights are canceled. So it's a 1-week trip. The day for the sister to go back to her country comes, there's no flight. There's no evacuation flights. What do? Wait. She waits and waits and waits in Mashhad. Okay, she's enjoying it. An extra week in Mashhad, right? But an extra week means you have to spend more, obviously. She runs out of money. What do I do now? So she starts asking for family and friends. They send her money until bad. Even that is not enough. So now they have to start a GoFundMe account for her. But an Arabic version one. I don't know what it's called, GoFundMe, the Arabic one. Because this is in the Middle East. And she's basically begging people just so she can stay at a very, very average hotel. Anyway, 3 weeks she spends it in Mashhad. She's trying to go back to her country, but the problem is her country's airport is completely shut down. So they tell her, you can go to Syria, and maybe from Syria you can go to your country. So she takes that flight with her family. She goes to Syria, but now she's stuck in Syria. Do you know how many months she ended up being stuck in Syria? 3 months. She no longer had money to buy diapers for her child. The formula, baby formula for her child ran out, and in Syria she could not find any good formula that is compatible with her child. So every day was a day of misery. I remember I used to follow the news. She would call her parents every day, cry, when is this crisis gonna end? Will I ever go back to my home? We've become like lost orphans here in Syria, and we don't know anybody. And on top of that, one day they wake up with a fever. They all have COVID. Yani the worst case situation you can ever imagine. Now the other sister, who was about to become an atheist, all of a sudden she comes back to Allah. And she starts praying Salat al-Layl, thanking Allah that she didn't go on that trip. She tells Allah, Ya Allah, I'm so sorry. I'm so ignorant. You denied me for my own good. When you made my son sick, you were trying to send me a message, don't go. I know you want to visit Imam al-Rida, but do you want to get stuck for 3-4 months? Do you want this to happen to you? Obviously not. We don't know the future, brothers and sisters. After 3 months, she was finally able to come back to her country. But after all the trauma, and they went through COVID, and her husband almost died in that trip because of his COVID. And this was early in the COVID stages where doctors didn't even know. They would, like Trump said, they would just give people Clorox, I think, in the beginning, right? Because everyone was dying left and right. That other sister, she told me, this is when I understood the dua of Imam al-Mahdi in dua al-Iftitah. You know, dua al-Iftitah is narrated by Imam al-Mahdi in Ramadan, we read it. The Imam says, فَإِنْ أَبْطَأَ عَنِّي عَتَبْتُ بِجَهْلِي عَلَيْكِ وَلَعَلَّ الَّذِي أَبْطَأَ عَنِّي هُوَ خَيْرٌ لِي لِعَلْمِكَ بِعَاقِبَةِ الْأُمُورِ. Subhanallah, the Imam captures this exact scenario. He says, I ask you, Ya Allah, and beg you. But when I don't see an answer, atabtu, I start complaining and whining and objecting. But the Imam says, but it may be that you are delaying or you're not giving me what I want because it's not good for me. Because you want my interest, you know the future. But I don't, I'm ignorant and I rush to conclusions. This is how we are with Allah Azza wa Jal, brothers and sisters. So sometimes when you are insisting on something from God and you're not seeing the answer, know that there is something that Allah knows that you don't know, which makes this, what you're asking for, not the right thing to ask. Why? Allah knows why. There are unlimited possibilities. Now, the question is, how do I know if this is punishment from Allah or no, this is mercy, He wants to prevent me? Now, first of all, brothers and sisters, you have to think anytime something bad happens, right? Was it my fault or no? There are some people who may fail a test, right? Why? Because they never studied. Can you blame that on Allah? Maybe Allah didn't want. I see some mothers, they come very, emotional, naive. My son, he really wanted to go to law school or med school, but he failed this test. I don't know, is there a plan, another plan that God has for him? Is this a message that stop? I tell her, no, sister. Your son, unfortunately, slacks off. He doesn't study. If he studies, he'll pass the test. So this has nothing to do with Allah. Sometimes it's our fault. If you miss your flight because you went late to the airport, can you blame Allah? Obviously not. But there are times in which you did everything correctly, but yet something goes wrong. In those instances, this is not punishment from Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal is very tolerable with us. If He wants to punish you, that's why He created the Day of Judgment. That's when He judges us and punishes us. So if you've done everything right, and you're asking for something that sounds good, that seems to be good, you don't get it? No. That Allah Azza wa Jal is depriving you for a good reason. You may not know what, just like the story of the ziyarah of Mashhad. But Allah Azza wa Jal is Allamul Ghuyub. So that's why, as I said, Islam, brothers and sisters, means trust. Trust Allah. Submit to Allah. Know that anything He does for you, it's for your own good. But because we're so ignorant, we don't realize that. Now, one of the most common du'as that people make, I'm sure if Gallup, for example, or Pew Research, if they would do a study on what is the most common prayer, du'a that people do, right? I think the best individuals to ask would be angels. I wish they would tell us, because they're always listening to our du'as. What is the most common du'a that you hear? I would think it's probably money, materialistic things. Want money, want a good job, want a good house, want a car. This is probably the most common du'a, right? I see Sayyid Harry laughing. What were you doing du'a last night, Sayyid Harry? Porsche or Lamborghini? Porsche or Lamborghini? Admit it. The lotto. Why the lotto? Just ask the money to come directly from God. He can't do that. He has to do it through lotto. So anyway, this is probably the most common dua. Every single one of us here, at least once in our lives, we ask for something materialistic from Allah, right? Including me. Whether it's a job, whether it's a house, whether it's you want to buy a car or whatever. But yet sometimes, like I said, we don't find the answer. What's going on? Why isn't Allah giving me? Isn't Allah Kareem? Isn't Allah generous? We act so childish and we rush. Why doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us if He can easily give us? If Allah has unlimited wealth, what will He lose if He gives me? Nothing. That's the difference between Allah and us. When you give something to someone, your wealth is now less than it was before, right? Even if I'm a billionaire. The point is, when you give something, now you have less wealth than you did before. But for Allah, subhanallah, that's what's beautiful. No matter what He gives you, His wealth, whatever He owns, does not decrease by a single bit. So why is He not giving me if it's that easy for Him? Sometimes, my dear brothers and sisters, Allah doesn't give you something because money could be the cause of your problems in this life and sometimes in the next life. What do I mean? I know some couples who are living a good life, middle class, average salary. All of a sudden, the business starts flying. As soon as that happens, they come to us here. Every day we have marriage counseling here. Every single day. There's a couple that come. I've noticed a pattern. Many couples, when did their problems start? When they started making more money. This is when the problem started between them. And I think to myself, subhanallah, this money was a curse. Before, when you as a couple were making 70, 80, 90 grand, your life was much better. Now that you're making 2 to 3, 400 grand, now you want to kill each other. Now you want to rip each other's hearts out. And remember, it starts with one issue and it escalates to 100 other issues. I tell them this money was a curse. You think Allah loved you when He gave you that money? I don't think so. I think probably Allah wanted to finish you off. So don't look at money always as something that is good in this life. You know, last year I believe I read a very funny but sad report on the news. In the UK, there was a couple that won the lotto. Huh, Sayyid Harry? You said you asked for the lotto? Listen to this. So the lady goes, buys a ticket, the wife. They're about in their 50s. And she wins the lotto. How much? 5 million British pounds. Right, how many dollars is that? Who's our financial consultant here? Last year was a lot more. Ahsant. Let's say $7-8 million. And they were very, very average in their life. Probably lived on $40,000-50,000 a year. She takes that 5 million pounds and whatever tax is taken, she's left with a couple of million, and they think that now life is going to be the best. It's going to be heaven, paradise on earth. Now, technically, who owns this money? It's the wife. The husband now has to be extra nice with his wife. She has money. She's a millionaire, right? So, he's trying to sit and plan what we're going to do. All his ideas are what? No, this doesn't make sense. Look, I'm going to make the plan, not you. And he keeps on getting frustrated. Everything is his wife doing. She doesn't care about him anymore, right? She's rich. She doesn't need him. So that starts an issue, envy. He starts to have envy, animosity, that now she's more powerful than me, that now she's richer than me, now she's this, now she starts to boss me around, now I have to serve her, now I have to make breakfast, now I have to make lunch. She keeps on what? She keeps on threatening me, I won't give you, I won't do this. Making breakfast? For the guy, it was a big deal, I guess. He didn't want to make breakfast. I mean, he wanted to see his food, right? Ready. The British food, of course. When he wakes up, he doesn't want to go and make it. So he was not happy. To the extent, this was on the news, Google it, last year. You know what he does one day? He takes out a knife. Very stupid plan, by the way. And he stabs her 9 times or 7 times in the face. 7 or 9 times in the face. And yet she didn't die. They say, you know, cats have what? How many? 7 lives? This 9 lives? I don't know, was it probably only 7? If it was 7, I know why she didn't die. But if it was 9, I don't know. But I had even more lives than a cat. So,
Sayyidina, we're fact checking this right now.
yeah, fact check it, Habibi.
Lottery winner stabs wife in the face.
Write it, Habibi. Write it. Fact check it and let me know if I'm wrong. Anyway, the wife is in the hospital and she is about to die, critical condition. When I read the report, it was 1 week from the incident and it said that she may die any second and the husband gets a life sentence. And the money is just left for nobody to benefit from. Was that money mercy from Allah or was it a curse? It was a curse from Allah. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, when we become wealthy in this dunya, this is when the problems start for you. So you ask Allah for this, that. Allah doesn't give it to you. Why? Because He knows in these instances, this is going to ruin your life. This is not good for you. And other times, listen carefully, other times money will ruin your next life, your akhirah, your faith. For some people, not all. You know, there's an interesting hadith from Imam Zain al-Abidin where he says, there is a very interesting relationship between wealth and greed. The more wealth Allah gives you, the more greed enters your heart. You would think it's the opposite. The more money you have, the more content you are. Greed means I want more. But the Imam says the more Allah gives you, the more greedy you become. And the Imam mentions it in this way. He says that when Allah gives you anything from the dunya, He gives you twice as much greed with it. Twice as much. So if you get $1,000, you just got $2,000 worth of greed inside your heart that now you have to fight. You have to do jihad an-nafs now to fight this greed. This is how Allah created the system. And that's why the greediest people on earth are the wealthy people. Not the poor people. It should be the poor people. They should be greedy because they don't have anything. But the wealthy people are the greediest people on earth. And I've written studies. Musa, Google it. Yeah, it's a true story, huh?
She tried to dump her, actually.
Oh, she tried to dump him because she didn't need him. Exactly. So even brothers and sisters, even if you did want to buy the lottery, make sure you, the brother, go and buy it, the husband. Don't let your wife go and buy the lotto. Or else she'll dump you. I'm joking. You're quitting your job? Why? Anyway, I'm joking with you guys. So, where was I? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I read this in the Atlantic, for your reference, Musa. That on average, these are studies that have proven the greediest people in America are the ultra rich. The ultra rich. Why? Because they did a study to see, on average, how much do Americans contribute to charities? How much do they give charity? So they found that the average, when it came to the middle class and even the lower class, was 3%. Whatever they make, 3% is given as donations, charity, to churches, hospitals, any type of charitable organization. The ultra rich, meaning the mega millionaires and billionaires, you know what percentage they gave? On average, according to the study on the Atlantic, 1%. Now, the 1% is bigger, but as a percentage, it's smaller. So who's greedier? The ultra rich or the middle class? Why is that, brothers and sisters? Because this is how Allah created this life. The more He gives you, the more you'll be attached to your money. If you have $1,000, giving 10% of it is easy, right? $100. But if you have $10 million, is giving 1 million easy? If you have 100 million, giving 10 million is easy? Because you will love that 10 million more than you love your own kids. And when you give it, it's like you're giving your own kidney to that institution or whatever it is. And that's why, brothers and sisters, you can ask, even my father, he can give you even more experiences and references. Most people that donate to mosques, this mosque, from the community, you think it's from the ultra rich? There are some exceptions. Don't want to put them all in one basket. But as when you see as a number, like let's say 1,000 people donated this year, 98, I would say, percent of them from the middle class and even the lower middle class. But go and see, go on Dockstader. Let me not mention, I'm afraid somebody lives on Dockstader here. Oh, I'm so sorry, sister. Do you live on Dockstader? Oh, okay. If you live on Dockstader, maybe you should leave now. So anyway, go and look at the fancy cars. Go and look at the mansions all over this neighborhood. Where are these people? I said, leave the IIA. Go to any. Where's Haj Ahmed, Haj Imo? He has also a charitable organization. I think Hajj Daniel, I don't know, does he tell you about the finances or is that a red line? Who are the most people that contribute, brothers and sisters? It's not the ultra wealthy. Why? Are they bad people? No, I'm not saying they're bad, but greed. That's what the Imam says. There's too much greed. What is it? There's too much greed. It's difficult for them to let go of that money. It's difficult because they're deeply in love and attached and obsessed with their wealth. It's hard. They have to practice the highest levels of jihadun nafs to get rid of that money. My father says one day, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, a brother calls me. He says, Sayyid, I have to see you now. My father says, but it's too early. I go to the office, let's say 11, 12, you can come then. He's like, no, I have to see you now. If you don't come, khalas, the cause will be lost. It's like, I went earlier to the office. He comes. He wants to pay his khums. And it was a huge amount. So my father, after doing everything, the paperwork and all that, he's like, couldn't wait 2-3 hours? He's like, no, Sayyid. Because last night, before I slept, I decided, khalas, I'm going to pay my khums, big money, right? He says that entire night I couldn't sleep. Every minute an idea would come. I knew it was the shaitan. Are you sure you want to give this amount? What if tomorrow the economy goes bad? What if this? What if that? What if this? Right? You become an expert financial consultant. You start thinking about every single scenario and you imagine that the world is going to completely collapse just because I gave this donation. So he's like, I could not sleep the entire night. I was doing jihad al-nafs. I just want to get rid of this money. It's killing me. So I was afraid if I wait till 12, 1 p.m., khalas, the shaitan will defeat me. The greed will take me over. So I had to quickly do it. This is how this dunya is, brothers and sisters. That's why we have traditions from the imams that tell us, if you ever intend on giving to the poor, to giving to any Islamic cause, charitable cause, do not say tomorrow, next year. Because the shaitan says, when I hear someone saying, I will give, he says, khalas, I leave my work and I come and I station right next to you. And I will work on you 24/7, trying to dissuade you. You see all those thoughts, should I give, should I not give, do I need this money, do I need... This is all from the shaitan. So the imams say, if you really want to give, you have that intention, do it then, right then. Or else the shaitan will defeat you. The greed, he'll use greed. He knows we have greed and he will play on that greed until he defeats us. During the time of Rasulullah, there was a companion by the name of Tha'laba, very poor. He's at the masjid 24/7. Salat, subuh, dhuhr, asr, maghrib, isha, he's always there. One day he comes to the Prophet, he tells him, Ya Rasulullah, can you do a dua for me? He says, what is it? Can you ask Allah to make me rich? The Prophet says, are you sure you want this? He said, yes, you could ask Allah. Allah will never say no to you. The Prophet says, look, living a simple life but being a mu'min, a believer, is much better than being wealthy, but that may lead you to losing your faith. So the Prophet keeps on giving him warnings. Be careful what you wish for. He told him, look at me, Rasulullah. I live the most humble life. Why don't I ask Allah to make me wealthy? So if the Prophet is not asking Allah to make him wealthy, you and I should understand that maybe this is not always the best dua. I'm not saying being wealthy is not good. On the contrary, it's good. We need wealthy people in our community. But I'm saying sometimes when Allah Azza wa Jal, you just keep on seeing a dead end, maybe for me it's not good. It's not good for my dunya or for my akhirah. So that he kept on insisting, no, please, Ya Rasulullah, I swear if I become rich, I will help all the poor. I will. All those fake promises. The Prophet says, fine, Ya Allah, make Tha'laba rich. The dua of Rasulullah is never rejected. Within the next couple of days, he had like one sheep that he used to own. That's pretty much it. So his sheep business started to grow at an unbelievable rate. Back then, like you want to become rich, what do? Right? You just go buy some sheep, some cows, livestock. That was that was the stock market of that day. That was just the hot thing to do for business. So his sheep market started to explode such that he couldn't even live in the city of Medina anymore because he needed a huge barn. So he left outside the Medina, he bought a huge piece of land and he had thousands of sheep within a matter of weeks or months. Before, when he's poor, has nothing to do, he was always at the mosque. The first person there, the last person to leave, right? Now, the Prophet never sees him anymore. So he sends after him, where's Tha'laba? Sayyid, people tell me sometimes, Sayyid, I'm busy. I have a job. I have 6 a.m. I have to be at work. Where are you, O Tha'laba? I can't leave my business, Ya Rasulullah. If I leave one day, it will collapse. So the Prophet starts saying, Tha'laba is no longer there. Okay, khalas, he's doing business. Inshallah he will help the poor. The day of zakat comes. You know, when you own livestock, you have to pay zakat, 2.5%. The Prophet sends the zakat collector. Who's he going to go to first? Tha'laba, the richest guy. So he does the calculations. Now, if you have 100 sheep, 2.5 what? Is 2.5 sheep. But if you have 1,000, now you're going to have to give how much? How much? Come on. This is basic, like second grade math. 25, right? Now what if you have 100,000 sheep? Now you have to give 2,500 sheep. It's not easy. So they do the calculations and they see, because he has all these sheep, he has to pay a huge amount. Tha'laba, when he sees that number, he's like, oh my God, I have to give all of that? So then, he doesn't want to give, but what is he going to do? That makes him look terrible. So he starts asking them, are you sure the Prophet sent you to me? Yes, we're sure. Aren't you Tha'laba? Yes. Are you sure you did the calculations right? Are you sure you included all my deductions? Did you this? Did you that? Doesn't want to give. They keep on discussing. In the end, he refuses to give. Okay, I'll give. He never shows up. The Prophet sends again. He never shows up. Until you know what happened? Allah revealed a verse in the Quran condemning him. This is the verse. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ عَاهَدَ اللَّهِ. And amongst the companions of the Prophet were those that made a promise to Allah. لَإِنْ آتَانَا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ لَنَصَّدَّقَنَّ وَلَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Make me rich, Ya Allah, and I will become so virtuous and so kind and so generous and blah, 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 all these fake promises. فَلَمَّا آتَاهُم مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And when Allah delivered, He gave them, بَخِلُوا بِهِ. They were so stingy. وَتَوَلَّوْا وَهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. And they just turned their backs and they said no. Allah then in the following verse, He calls him a munafiq, a hypocrite. Was it worth for Tha'laba to become wealthy, but at the sake of what? At the cost of what? Being condemned by Allah in the Quran and being called a hypocrite? Wallahi, it wasn't worth it. Had he stayed in his original condition, much better. This is when the Prophet said, I warned Tha'laba, but he didn't listen. So the point of this story is that sometimes we ask for wealth, but Allah knows it's not good for me. Either because my husband will stab me 7 or 9 times in my face, like that story, or because it's going to take me far away from Allah. Allah doesn't want to lose me. It's either me, Allah says it's either me or money. If I give him the money, but I won't see him anymore. Is he going to give you the money? Sometimes? No, because it distracts us too much. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once again, anytime He denies me something, it's because He loves me. He doesn't want to lose me. You know, every single day, one of the most important tasks that we have here in the IIA is doing khira for people. Istikhara. On average, you can ask Hajj Iman, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 khiras sometimes. And there are some people so weird, they call and they want like four khiras. 4 khiras together. I don't know what is this, like buy 3 get 1 free package. And usually these people, I think they're at a restaurant and they're looking at the menu and there's 4 options and they do a khira on each one. I'm being serious. Why would you want 4 khiras at once? What are you going to do? So we do the khiras, it's good, it's bad. I remember once a sister, she called and she wanted a khira. Okay, the khira is good. Thank you, Sayyid. After a couple of months, she calls and she's complaining. Sayyid, didn't you tell me the khira was good? Yes, khira was good. Well, Sayyid, I did khira to invest in this stock and now it crashed. What type of khira did you do for me? I was like, sister, you think khira is fortune telling? What does khira mean? You're consulting Allah Azza wa Jal. Maybe Allah wants this stock to crash. Why? I don't know. But your standard of what's good and bad is different than Allah's standard. That's why sometimes I'm even reluctant to do khira for some people. Because they don't understand what khira is. They think khira is good, that means khalas, life is going to be perfect. No. Allah is telling you there is good in it. How? When? Trust. Remember, al-Islamu huwa taslim. Islam is about submission. If you can't trust God, then why are you doing khira to begin with? Don't do khira. If you trust God and you want to invest, for example, the khira comes out good, whatever happens after that, say, Ya Allah, I consulted you, you told me this is a good idea, but I know this is good for me, either for this life or for my akhirah. Maybe it's better for my next life. You have a question?
Do you know what the khira is when they do it with you, or they just do it and it's private?
No, most people, they don't tell me what their intention is. And I don't ask. I don't need to know. They just tell me, I want a khira, and I'll do the khira for them. Some people, they will tell me, but that's unnecessary for me to know. I just need to know that they have made the intention, and that's enough. So, anyway, going back to the topic. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal may not give you what you're asking for. Why? Because Allah knows that once He gives you what you want, that's going to change your life for the worse, or change your afterlife for the worse. So that's another reason why Allah Azza wa Jal sometimes may not answer our dua. And then again, we have some traditions that tell us that sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal may delay what you're asking for. Why? Wallahi, this is such a beautiful hadith. Because He loves to hear your voice doing dua. And when He gives you what you want, khalas, you'll stop doing dua. So Allah says, He tells His angels, wait, don't give him what he wants. I want to hear his dua every day. This is a hadith from Imam al-Sadiq. He says, إن العبد ليدعو فيقول للملكين يقول الله للملكين قد استجبت له. I have answered what he wants, but not now. Maybe next year. Why? ولكن احبسوه بحاجته فإني أحب أن أسمع صوته. Because I love listening to his voice. When he sits down and he says, Ya Allah, with that broken heart and the tearful eyes, he does dua to Allah. Allah loves that condition when you connect with Him. So Allah knows if He gives you what you want, ba'ad khalas, you'll go. You're not going to come and ask dua in the next day, but you have what you want. So Allah tells His angels, wait. I want to continuously hear the dua of this person, so don't give him what he wants now. And then the Imam says, Allah sees someone who He doesn't love, for whatever reason. As soon as he raises hands for dua, Allah tells the angels, quickly give him what he wants. I don't want to listen to him. What do we humans say? Allah loves the second guy, but He doesn't love the first guy. Well, it's exactly the opposite. We have to change our perspective, brothers and sisters. Allah Azza wa Jal cares about His relationship with you more than anything. He doesn't want to lose that. He's more concerned about us than we are about our relationship with Him. Anything that gets in the way between me and Allah, Allah doesn't want it. He's reluctant to give it to you unless you insist way too much. He says, fine, take it. What am I going to do? So, anytime we do dua, put this into perspective that maybe Allah Azza wa Jal is delaying my dua, answering my dua, because He just loves that I am what? Speaking to Him. Because when we are in need, this is when we turn to Allah. When life is comfortable, you don't need anything, you're not going to turn to God usually. When do we turn to God? When we're in need, when we're sick, when we are need wealth, when we have any problem in our life, this is when we turn to Allah. This is when we connect with Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't want to lose that relationship. He may delay it. And finally, I'll end with this, brothers and sisters. The Imam says sometimes you do a dua and Allah may delay it and never even give it to you in this life. He will delay it till the next life. You ask for something in this life, for something good, Allah says, you know what? Instead of giving it to you now, I'll give it to you on the day of judgment and you will benefit from it much more. Listen to this hadith. The Imam says, إِنَّ الرَّبَّ لَيَلِي حِسَابَ الْمُؤْمِنِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. On the day of judgment, Allah, when He tries us, the believer, He'll show him a huge reward. Unbelievable reward. And then He asks him a question. He says, do you know what this is for? فَيَقُولُ لَا يَا رَبِّ. Is this for me? This huge reward is for me? I thought this is for a prophet, for an imam. Allah says, no, this is for you. So the believer asks, what did I do? I didn't do anything special. Allah tells him, دعوتني في ليلة كذا. Remember, you had that haja that you kept on asking me and I didn't give it to you? Don't think I was neglecting you. Don't think I was rejecting you. Allah says, I was saving it for you for this day, the day of judgment. Because if I give it to you in the dunya, how many years are you going to benefit from? A couple of years and you'll leave it and go to your grave. So I said in front, instead of giving it to him now, let me give it to him on the day of judgment. So Allah says that I saved it for this day. When the believer sees what a huge reward Allah is giving him just because Allah didn't answer his dua in the dunya. He delayed it for the akhirah. You know what he will tell Allah? Listen carefully. He says, Ya Rabbi layta innaka lam takun ajjalta li shay'an. He says, Ya Allah, I wish you would have not given me anything in this dunya. All my du'as, I wish you would have delayed them. In this dunya, we complain, why aren't you giving me right now? On the day of judgment, we will complain, but the exact way. Why did you give me when I asked you, when you could have delayed it till the day of judgment? What does Allah do? Whatever He does, we're not happy, we complain. That's why we have to trust. That's why Islam is all about submission. When Allah hasn't given you something, maybe He's preparing something 1,000,000,000 times bigger for you. Something that will be eternal, everlasting. So don't insist too much on the thing that you want. Always ask Allah for dua. Always ask for what you want. But when you don't see exactly what you want, know that there is a good cause for that. The other day, I'll end with this. The other day, a brother asked me, he said, Sayyid, I pray, I give my financial dues, I'm very good, I'm this, I'm that, but I just can't have kids. We've went to all the doctors, we don't have kids, and he's a doctor himself. He says, but I see some patients, this is what he said, some of them are crackheads, and they have 7 kids. So I tell myself, what's going on? Allah doesn't give me 1 child, but He gives this crackhead 7. He gives these drug addicts, these sometimes even criminals, all these kids. What's going on? Does God hate me? No, brothers and sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't hate me. Maybe Allah is waiting for the right time. Maybe this is not the right time for you to have a kid. Maybe Allah Azza wa Jal has a bigger plan for you. If He deprives you of children in this life, He will make it up to you on the next life that you have, in a way in which it will be 1,000,000,000,000 times greater than if you would have given you that child. So trust Allah Azza wa Jal. When Allah is not giving you whatever it is, know that there is wisdom in it. But if you don't have that trust in Allah, you're going to keep on questioning. You're going to keep on objecting. All comes down to having trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah bless you all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your a'mal. May Allah give us all that spirit of obedience and that spirit of tawakkul. Tawakkul, brothers and sisters, on Allah gives you so much comfort in this life. Relieves you of so much stress. Don't fret about it. Don't think too much. Why? You have a master, you have a creator, you have a sustainer that loves you. He's taking care of you. And as long as, remember, it's not your fault, you're not doing something wrong, you know that whatever is happening to you is for your own good. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our a'mal, to forgive us, to answer our hajat in the best way that He sees suitable and appropriate. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our Imam, Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. And let us end by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for all the believers, mu'mineen, mu'minat. Let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha for them after a loud salawat for Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.